When we gather to consider the nature of crime, justice, and the enduring impact of human actions, it is not only statistics, theories, or policies that demand our attention. It is the lived experience of one family, one community, and the ripple effects of a single violent act that bring to life the true cost of wrongdoing. What I will share with you today is not merely an account of events, but a narrative that weaves together trust and betrayal, ambition and greed, resilience and heartbreak, all culminating in the relentless pursuit of justice. It is in such settings that the illusion of safety can be most deeply felt, because when tragedy does strike, its shock reverberates far beyond the immediate circle of those involved. In this community, there was a man whose life had been a testament to perseverance and dedication. He built his wealth and stability not through inheritance or shortcuts, but through determination, entrepreneurial spirit, and a willingness to invest himself fully into ventures that others might have dismissed as too risky or unconventional. The enterprises he developed reflected both a sharp business acumen and a taste for unique opportunities. He engaged in the trade of precious metals, coins, and collectibles, operating a storefront that stood at the heart of the town. For him, this was never simply an occupation. It was at once a business, a hobby, and a passion. Alongside this, he had successfully run liquor stores, invested in real estate, and pursued other ventures that demonstrated an ongoing drive to create, expand, and thrive. He was a man who valued fine possessions, from vintage cars to musical instruments, and he was not shy about displaying them. This visibility, admired by some and envied by others, created a reputation of wealth and prosperity that did not go unnoticed. What defined him most deeply, however, was not his financial success or the artifacts he collected. It was his devotion to family. Those who knew him speak of how profoundly he was transformed by fatherhood. The birth of his children gave him a sense of grounding and purpose that no business deal or financial gain could ever match. He cherished his role as a father, finding in it the truest meaning of his existence. For all his achievements in commerce, nothing compared to the pride and joy he experienced when holding his children, guiding them, and watching them grow. His life, by all appearances, was complete. It is against this backdrop of apparent fulfillment and stability that tragedy struck. One day, he did not return home as expected. For a man of his habits, whose family knew his routines with certainty, this absence raised immediate alarm. Concern turned into dread, and dread hardened into the terrible reality that his life had been taken violently. His body was discovered near his home, covered with objects as though to conceal the crime. The scene left little doubt that this was no accident, no self-inflicted act, but a deliberate and calculated killing. He had been shot multiple times, dragged, and hidden from sight. The shock was immense. In the early days, questions swirled. Who could have committed such an act? What motives could drive someone to end the life of a man so devoted to his family and community? Speculation abounded, from business disputes to random opportunistic violence. Some suggested drug users might have targeted him for his wealth. Yet soon, more troubling details began to surface, and the contours of the crime revealed themselves to be far more intimate than anyone had imagined. Central to these revelations was the role of those who lived under his roof. After the birth of his youngest child, his partner's parents had come to stay in his home. At first, their presence was explained as an effort to provide support during the early months of parenthood. Yet what was intended as a temporary arrangement stretched into many months. During this time, the man, ever generous and hospitable, provided for them, even as he quietly longed for the day when his household would return to its core family unit. He spoke to others of his unease, of a feeling he could not quite articulate, particularly concerning the father of his partner. There was something unsettling, he would say, a sense that trust should not be given lightly. His instincts, as time would later prove, were tragically accurate. In the days following the discovery of his body, suspicion deepened when members of his family noticed unusual behavior from those who had been staying with him. Silver and other valuables appeared in their possession. Locks on his safes had been changed. Even the home itself was altered as though to erase traces of what had taken place. In one instance, a trunk was found filled with bags of his precious metals, prompting immediate confrontation. Law enforcement, constrained by the limits of what they could act upon in that moment, described the matter as civil, leaving the family to reclaim what they could. To those closest to him, however, the pattern was unmistakable. Those who had been welcomed into his home, given shelter, and supported, had betrayed him in the most devastating way imaginable. Further investigation uncovered more damning evidence. Blood traces in the home matched members of the partner's family. Financial records revealed large cash deposits made shortly before and after the killing, suggesting premeditation and profit as a motive. Surveillance systems in the home had been deliberately disabled, their storage devices hidden away. The ever-present bag of cash and the pistol he carried were nowhere to be found. Piece by piece, the puzzle pointed inward, not to strangers or faceless enemies, but to those bound by supposed ties of love and trust. As the case developed, the legal system slowly advanced toward accountability. The partner and her parents were arrested and charged with conspiracy, larceny, and capital murder. The significance of this development was profound. It meant that the tragedy was not simply the result of external threats, but of collusion from within the very circle of family. For his relatives, the betrayal compounded the grief. To lose a loved one is devastating. To lose him at the hands of those who had been embraced as family is nearly unbearable. The progression of the case introduced still more complexity. The partner, faced with the enormity of the charges and the possibility of the harshest penalties under law, made a fateful decision. She chose to cooperate with the prosecution. In exchange for her testimony against her father, the charges against her were reduced. She admitted to having confronted her father about the crime, during which he made incriminating statements. While she denied involvement in the planning or execution, she acknowledged her complicity after the fact, concealing information that might have hastened justice. The court accepted her plea, lowering her potential sentence from life imprisonment without parole to a maximum of 20 years. This arrangement, though legally sound, left the family of the victim with a bitter taste. To them, anyone who knew of the crime, whether before, during, or after, shared in the guilt. They struggled to reconcile the idea that someone who had remained silent for months, who had lived alongside them while knowing the truth, could now be positioned as a witness for the prosecution rather than as a co-defendant facing the gravest of consequences. Their anger was understandable, yet their determination to see justice served outweighed even their disappointment in the compromises of the legal process. The trial for the other defendants is scheduled for the near future. They will stand together, accused not only of theft and conspiracy, but of the most serious crime of all, the deliberate taking of a life. The courtroom will serve as the stage upon which truth and accountability are pursued. The testimony of their daughter, once their ally, will now be presented against them. Their defense will seek to raise doubts, to claim coincidence, to provide alibis. Yet the weight of evidence, from financial deposits to concealed property, from bloodstains to missing weapons, will confront them with the undeniable. Beyond the courtroom, however, this story holds lessons that resonate far more widely. It speaks to the vulnerability of success, to the dangers of misplaced trust, and to the corrosive power of greed. Here was a man who had achieved what many aspired to: financial independence, professional fulfillment, and the joy of raising a family. Yet, in displaying his success openly, in offering generosity without limit, he also exposed himself to those whose intentions were far darker. His openness, his willingness to welcome others, became the very avenue through which betrayal entered his life. The consequences of this betrayal extend beyond the crime itself. They reverberate through his children, who will grow up without the guiding presence of their father. They weigh heavily on his siblings and extended family, who must not only grieve, but also navigate the complexities of custody, inheritance, and the preservation of his memory. They leave scars on the community, reminding all who knew him that even in the quietest of towns, violence and deceit can erupt in the most unexpected places. The family, to their immense credit, has not allowed grief to silence them. Instead, they have chosen to channel their pain into constructive remembrance. They have established scholarships in his honor, ensuring that young people pursuing education and training carry forward his legacy. They have spoken publicly, not for attention, but to remind others that crime is not an abstraction. It is not a story to be consumed for entertainment. It is a lived experience that shatters lives. They insist that his memory not be reduced to a case file, but preserved in the laughter of his children, in the opportunities created through scholarship, and in the stories of his generosity, his quirks, and his unwavering devotion as a father. In reflecting upon this case, one cannot help but recall the words he himself once wrote in a poem found after his death. He spoke of the certainty of karma, of the inevitability that wrongdoing brings consequences, of the impossibility of escaping justice forever. It is a striking testament to his insight that even as he lived fully and without fear, he recognized that those who exploit and betray will ultimately face accountability. His words now serve as both prophecy and reminder that justice, whether delayed or immediate, cannot be avoided. As we look forward to the conclusion of this case, we are reminded of the central obligations of our justice system: to uncover the truth, to hold the guilty accountable, and to provide some measure of closure to the victims and their families. Yet, we must also recognize that closure, in its fullest sense, is often elusive. For those who loved him, no verdict will restore what has been lost. Justice can punish the perpetrators, but it cannot bring back the man whose life was so cruelly cut short. What remains, then, is the imperative to remember and to learn. To remember that generosity must sometimes be tempered with caution. To learn that the appearance of family or friendship does not always align with loyalty or trustworthiness. To recognize that crime, though it may seem the province of distant headlines, can invade the most familiar of settings. And above all, to honor the life of a man who gave so much to his family and community, ensuring that his children know the depth of his love, that his community remembers his contributions, and that his story serves as a warning as well as an inspiration. In conclusion, this case is more than a tale of murder and theft. It is a profound narrative of human character, of ambition and greed, of love and betrayal, of resilience and justice. It challenges us to reflect on the fragility of trust, the responsibilities of those who survive, and the unwavering necessity of accountability. As the legal process moves forward, and as those responsible face the weight of the law, let us not lose sight of the deeper meaning, that one man's life, though taken too soon, continues to shape the lives of many, not through his possessions, but through his legacy of love, generosity, and resilience.